a really nice one, man.
I'm excited for it. Yeah, Who'd they bring on?
Matt Amendola.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? We are back. It is Showdown edition, Stokastic.com. DFS channel right here, breaking down a phenomenal game for the morning strategy show. Shout out to all you guys who are up with us already. East Coast, I mean, it's 9 o'clock, right? But West Coast, I know some of you guys are here, 6 a.m., doing your thing. Mountain time, maybe. Or maybe you're Central time like my buddy Matt Gajewski here at Matt_Gajewski. Follow me, Dave Loughran at Loughran_D, LOUGHY_D on the Twitters. And let's make it happen. Dude, we got a good one ahead of us today. Chargers and Chiefs.
Yeah, man, the little week one hangover special. We have a phenomenal Thursday night matchup. It's going to be high scoring. We get to see two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and it gives us a really interesting showdown slate because they have expensive prices. We'll dive into that too, but it creates a unique challenge for Showdown. So I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for Showdown, excited for all of it.
Yeah, me too, man. And I'll tell you what, I know that Keenan Allen is out and the Chiefs are a very good team, just straight embarrassed the Cardinals last week. But have you looked at these games since Justin Herbert has been with the Chargers?
What do you mean?
All
like
right,
Chiefs versus Chargers?
Yeah, really interesting. So, okay, the Chargers won 2 and they lost 2. One game they won, you can throw out the window because it was a Week 18 game, I think, in 2020, and Andy Reid didn't play his starters. Last year, the Chargers won 24-20, right? Divisional rivalry, always good games. The only 2 games, so the 2 games that the Chargers won, but then there's 2 games that they lost. Both games that they lost in the Justin Herbert era were overtime games. There hasn't been a single game these teams played that literally hasn't come down to the wire.
That makes sense. I think when you look at both rosters, 2 absolutely elite teams, and they've had concerns on defense in the past. With the Chargers in particular, it's been their run defense, which, doesn't necessarily match up against Patrick Mahomes. But, I mean, we're talking about 2 best of the best teams overall. And when you look at the spread for this game, it's another projected close one, another projected high scoring affair. And it honestly might come down to who is the ball last, just with how good these offenses are. Outside of field goal, I was a little surprised to see that. Kansas City -4 currently. Maybe Keenan Allen's absence has something to do with that. But overall, should be a close game, should be a high scoring game. I didn't know the overtime stat. That's pretty crazy, but it just speaks to how elite these 2 teams and these 2 offenses are.
Absolutely. So it's going to be fun to talk about, and we should have a close one. Happy to have you guys with us. As always, you know the drill. You walk in, you hit the thumbs up. It only takes a second. If you like this content, if not, I don't know why you're here. But if you're here and you don't like the content, still hit that thumbs up or hit the thumbs down button twice and subscribe to the channel while you're at it. Much appreciated. We love having you guys with us every single day. And if you want to join, hit join down below. Get the free super chats each month, the custom emoji, the sweet ones. You got us all up there. You got the badges, make it an exclusive club around here. The survivor pool's going on for all of our members, and we'll be doing other stuff as well. You ready to dive into this, man?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. So first things first, when it comes to just general strategy for something like this, it's a showdown slate. It's the NFL. It's not you and me talking showdown preseason where it's just a mess and everybody's the same price. Is there anything about this game specifically that stands out that makes it different from other games from a showdown perspective?
First of all, it's really high scoring, projected, which makes me a little less likely to use kickers and defense as long as there's some sort of value. And I think we do have that today. But we also have 2 really expensive signal callers. And if you guys have gone into DraftKings FanDuel yet this morning and tried to build some lineups, if you captain one or the other and then just try to use the opposite quarterback in your flex spot, you run into, I would say, some cost prohibitive measures here. It does get hard to make lineups with these 2 in your lineup with one of them at captain. So it's an interesting spot to maybe get some leverage because we know a lot of people are just naturally going to do that. It's what people that play Showdown like to do, casuals like to do. So if you captain like a pass catcher, if you captain a running back, not only are you getting a unique construction, but you can also save a lot of salary and just build lineups that look a little bit better in the long run. So to sum this up, I think the two keys to this slate are the high scoring environment and the cost prohibitive quarterbacks and how you handle them.
Absolutely. Nice and succinct there. Also, Eric Traub with a $10 super chat just wanted to say good morning to us, Matt. He said, man of the people and man who knows all the football people. Good morning. I like that. That's solid. And I got one more thing I want to throw out there. You'll appreciate this. It was a solid comment in chat. And I see all you guys in there. Look, the chat makes the world go round when we do these videos. So keep it going. Yeah, Eric said, if you're here and you don't like them, send a $10 super chat to let them know why. All right. So Mark Curry, Matt, said, and dude, you and I have been talking about this forever. Chiefs are infamous for a no-name tight end or fullback getting a touchdown in Showdown. Now, yes, it was also Byron Pringle in those primetime games. But I did a Thursday Night Football betting video that came out yesterday. Check it out on the Odd Shopper channel. I also have a video for every single game, picks for every single game that's out as well. Love to have you guys support us over there. And also, if you like betting, I mean, Matt's got the best college football and basketball when it happens. Content you're going to find on there. I'm pumping out a ton of NFL stuff. You got Ben doing, I don't know, every sport known to man.
Ping pong.
And all, yeah, ping pong. But to Mark Curry's statement, Matt, I always throw in a bonus pick at the end, like an egregious one where I say, all right, you sprinkle on this if you even want to. It's not a plus EV bet, but we have some fun because it's YouTube. Noah Gray touchdown. Okay. Now, you're the guy that called the Will Dissly one last time, right? And that was huge. People were stoked. Do you know Noah Gray had 2 targets last week and both of them were inside the 10-yard line?
I didn't know they came inside the 10-yard line. I was watching the red zone, so I didn't catch all of this game. But that's not too surprising. They've used a lot of tight ends historically in that area of the field. In addition to Travis Kelce, they use a lot of 12 personnel down there, whether it's been Blake Bell or we've seen Jody Fortson targeted at times down there. They have used multiple tight ends. They've used fullbacks. We've seen Anthony Sherman catch some of those shuffle passes. They use a lot of creative player personnel groups. We often see that like Mahomes shuffle pass sort of screen type play that goes to tight ends and fullbacks. And it's not just Kelce. And to your point, Noah Gray, if you look back at his profile, like he is an excellent receiving profile. He went to school at Duke, if any of you guys are curious, but he's kind of like
had to throw that in there.
Yeah, had to for the chat. I don't want to say like a poor man's Mark Andrews. I don't like saying poor man's version, but he kind of
homeless man's Mark Andrews.
Yes, he does profile like that. He is more of your receiving threat. He's not your pure blocker like some of the Chiefs tight ends. So if you are throwing a dart on a guy like that, I mean, it makes sense. And then the red zone targets that you mentioned help even further. It gives you a lot of scoring equity.
Absolutely. I think we're supposed to say houseless now or something.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
I don't think we're supposed to. I think it's like, lacking personal residence person or something. But either way, I get your point. And it plus 600, it's definitely possible. But that's one more question I want to ask you before we get into it. And all this stuff is insanely important, relevant. Let's say that much. So if we're talking about a slate like this, where you have really cost prohibitive quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, for good reason. You don't have Keenan Allen, but you have Kelce. You have Austin Eckler. You have Mike Williams, who isn't particularly cheap himself, right? Even in the flex, Mike Williams is $9K. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is $8,600. Juju Smith-Schuster is $8K. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 7 players who are active over $8K. If you're going for a really cheap player, right? Like Noah Gray, he's minimum salary. Does that make sense when you can just load up elsewhere? Or is there a notion that because this could be such a high scoring game, 1 6-yard touchdown reception isn't going to cut it? You know where I'm going with this?
For sure. And I think the approach you're talking about is one of 2 you can possibly take on this slate, and one that, not only is going to be something that gets you unique, but could actually access a really high scoring GPP winning lineup. And you're mentioning the one, so taking a flyer on like a Noah Gray, which I think is fine. and he doesn't need to do a ton. You know, if Noah Gray went out there and caught 2 passes and one of them happened to be his score, it's not so much about Noah Gray, but it's the access he provides you to the other expensive players on this slate. So can he do just enough where he makes up for maybe a different kind of build that's middling across the price tiers? So that is one way I like to approach tournaments, is find a punt play. And luckily, Noah Gray's one of them. I think there's a couple you can use on this slate. The other thing I like to do is maybe just take a slightly less expensive captain. And on this slate, I like doing that at pass catchers. So whether it's Palmer or MVS, that's another way to afford you a little extra salary. And instead of punting completely, you're not flipping the build a little bit where you're playing a less expensive captain, but hopefully you can still roster a Mahomes or a Herbert, depending on what you decide to do. And that way you're still accessing all the good plays. It's just you maybe didn't pick the highest scoring captain. So you're not reliant on that punt play that's going to be playing limited snaps. You're actually playing more of the good plays. It's just you don't have the elite captain scoring potential. But those are the 2 ways I like to approach it in tournaments on a slate like today.
Love it. I just pulled up the top Showdown single game plays tool. It's the best. I mean, it's critical for Showdown slates. Anyone who knows. So we use that all the time on these shows. And if you want to get in on that, first 3 days, totally free of Stokastic Plus Platinum NFL, not just Showdown, literally everything on the site for NFL outside of Fantasy Country, because we don't own Fantasy Country. You can get the add-on whenever you want, but first 3 days, totally free, from projections to ownership, top stacks tool, the top single game, top Showdown plays tool. And if you're wondering, you're like, top plays, what's that? It's not just ranking. It's giving you the probability that they're the top overall score, that they're in 2 to 6, meaning in the utility spot, the likelihood that they're going to be in there, or for FanDuel, 2 through 5, the leverage score, optimal lineup percentage, all of that stuff. It's massive. A top stacks tool, all the articles, everything else. I think it'll help you greatly, and it's free for 3 days. So if you've been burned by other sites in the past and you have some hesitancy to dive back into those waters, well, in this case, you don't have to pay anything. 3 days for free. Use the link in the description. Mike can throw one in the chat as well if you want to get in on that and follow along with us. All right. So let's start with the Chargers. No Keenan Allen today. I would say that's pretty significant. What's interesting, though, is, and I know Keenan Allen is mainly a slot guy, a possession guy. You're not usually going to get those massive, 50-yard touchdowns from him, but he racks them up in PPR formats. Did you think Josh Palmer would be a little bit higher owned, or since they raised his price point, does this seem to be normal?
I think his ownership is going to rise throughout the day.
Okay. Me too.
There's a couple of reasons. One, he's just the number 2, presumably, to Justin Herbert. I know they spread it out quite a bit last week. Nobody had more than 4 targets. Part of that because Keenan Allen got hurt. But also, I mean, you look at the snaps, you look at the routes, like that's not going to be the case week over week. Mike Williams was very clearly the wide receiver 1 when Keenan Allen left. Palmer was very clearly the wide receiver 2. So I would expect this to normalize in these target shares to look a little closer to where they were last year. Mike Williams was above 20%. That makes sense. But on Palmer specifically, I think he's cheap. So this is going to let you access a build where maybe you can play both Mahomes and Herbert. So I tried to build some lineups this morning. When I did that and I used either Mahomes or Herbert in the captain, you kind of have to play Palmer. Or, I mean, I guess for leverage, you could get to DeAndre Carter, who we'll talk about in a minute, but Carter's going to have the better projection. He's going to be in all those Mahomes Herbert lineups. So I think naturally, not just because he's the number 2 to Herbert, because he accesses that build where you get both QBs, his ownership should climb. He's a really high leverage score right now. And it's honestly possible that this stays really positively leveraged throughout the day just because he's a phenomenal play at that price point. But I do expect the ownership to climb.
Yeah. And it's not like Carter wasn't involved in week 1.
No, he was very, I mean, they moved things around a little bit when he came on the field, but he essentially took over that Keenan Allen slot role.
Yeah, for sure. And he scored too. I mean, obviously touchdowns are volatile, but it's nice to see that he got in the end zone. So just in a vacuum, who do you like more, Carter or Palmer, at their salaries, at their ownership, with their leverage right now?
I do prefer Palmer right now. This is assuming you're playing low risk. You want to know who's the better play between the two. Palmer's going to have a better projection. Palmer, he was on the field for 50 snaps, DeAndre Carter 25. Palmer was on the field for 25 routes, DeAndre Carter just 14. Again, Carter's the replacement for Keenan Allen, so this affects things a little bit. but we also have a longer sample with Carter. Excuse me, a longer sample with Palmer. Carter's essentially a career special teamer. Palmer's the guy they drafted on day 2 of the NFL draft, so he's kind of the heir apparent to whatever receiver leaves first. It'll probably be Keenan Allen due to age. So they have a lot invested in this guy, and that's reflected in the snaps and the route shares. Again, the targets were really spread last week. I do not expect that to continue to that degree moving forward. So at a very close price point, give me Palmer as just the better play in a vacuum.
Okay. Yeah, someone said in chat, they remember when Guyton was supposed to be the next man up. Yeah, he ran 3 routes last game, Matt, and had only 1 target that he didn't catch.
Yeah, I remember that too. And maybe he does get used as a situational deep threat. The one thing I'll say, game over game, is you game plan with the current personnel you have. So we've occasionally seen, a guy gets hurt mid-game.
Yep.
Team does one thing to replace him, and they change the game plan, change their personnel the second week, which is possible. Like if you're playing the Millie Maker tonight, I wouldn't rule out Guyton, but his routes are certainly concerning from week 1.
That happens all the time in NBA games too, where, somebody gets hurt mid-game and then someone else will start the second half for them. But then things get totally mixed. It turned around the next game. Like you said, you're game planning for certain situations when you have an entire week, or in this case, when you have, most of the week to game plan. Otherwise, it can change up. What's Guyton's ownership at right now? Because as I think we'd both agree that he's clearly, the third option by far between Palmer and Carter. But at the same time, it is a showdown slate. So where's his ownership?
He's at 4.5%
in the utility.
I believe that's overall. He doesn't have any captain ownership. It's all coming utility right now based on our projections.
Right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's not the craziest idea to have some of him in large field tournaments. I mean, it is a Millie Maker tonight with 200,000 entries. So yeah.
We've seen him do it too. It's not like he's a random guy on the street. He's been a situational deep threat for the team. They rotate receivers a bit. Like, I don't know if Carter is going to be – Carter's still their kick returner and stuff. He's their punt returner. So, I mean, maybe he gets off the field a little bit just because they know he needs to play that role and Guyton plays. But
yeah,
you never know.
Plus, I'd much rather play – if you're going, super low ownership, super low probability, but I'd rather go with someone like him over a Ben Skoranek, who's not going to get those, those deep ball opportunities. A lot of those cheap guys that we play. And I know you're a big Ben Skoranek fan.
Huge.
But you know what I mean? I would rather have a guy that might get a deep target or like 2 deep targets per game potentially than somebody who's getting a lot, without that upside in the big breakaway plays where, is it possible that this game is over and Guyton has 1 for 50 and a touchdown? Yeah, I think it is. It's not likely, but it's possible. So, what do you think about Mike Williams here? No, Keenan Allen is significant. Now, Mike Williams was just not involved last game. The defense did a lot of work against Derek Carr, put them in a good spot, picked him off 3 times. Sante Samuel Jr. had a really nice pick as well. Now LA has that. They got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the outside. Like this defense is going to have some very big games this season, and it might make it so the offense can be a little bit more conservative as they were last week. But Mike Williams without Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I think he's awesome. Last year's target share was still north of 20%. He's a guy that gets targeted a lot downfield, and he has a big red zone target share too. And I think that's mostly because of his size. But I mean, even the combination of his size, the red zone share, and getting targeted downfield, that's a pretty attractive play on paper. And I mean, you can say this was the case last week as well. And I'm well aware of what Mike Williams did. I stacked him a ton in my Justin Herbert lineups trying to get some leverage on the main slate, which did not work. But he's the only proven commodity this team has at receiver. After him, we're talking about Josh Palmer, who, for everything he's done, he's still been a limited player to this point in his career. DeAndre Carter's a career special teamer. Gerald Everett is a part-time tight end through most of his career. Now, due to the Donald Parham injury, he probably has to play more. When you look at all these guys individually, Mike Williams is the only proven commodity here. He is expensive. I thought maybe his price would fall a little bit more after that poor week 1 performance. But even if it didn't, which it hasn't, I'm still willing to play him as the main pass catcher in Justin Herbert's stacks. I think he makes for an interesting contrarian play in the captain position because he has that touchdown ability. He gets targeted a lot downfield. Again, led the team in air yards last year. This is a big play receiver. And maybe if we get a little bit of an ownership break based on that week 1 performance, I think it's going to make for a solid leverage opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ultimately, you're getting a price that is, I think, more than reasonable. The only question is, I'm trying to figure this out too. We also had a super chat from earlier that asked best captain for a single entry today in a tournament, Matt, and it feels like you could go a number of ways there.
I'm probably, so depending on the size of it. So I would love to know what size single entry, but just in general, there's this idea that in single entry, you don't need to play as contrarian. Again, this is all dependent on size. So honestly, we've seen some condensed ownership on some of just the better plays in a vacuum, even more so than some of the larger field tournaments. So to me, the first thing I'm doing in a single entry, if it's anywhere near like a decent size, a big size, I'm probably just going to captain one of the pass catchers or Eckler, removing Mahomes and Herbert, still playing them in the flex, but removing them at captain to try to get some sort of leverage and then just building out a good lineup for there, because you're going to get a lot of leverage in these tournaments, especially single entry. If you just remove Mahomes and Herbert captain, again, still want to play them, but just try to take a different approach at the captain spot. I
was going to say the exact same thing. Like Mike Williams getting sub 8% at captain right now.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I think Eckler's an excellent pivot back. Like their game last week wasn't really in doubt at any point. And after everything Eckler said this offseason about not wanting a full workload, not because he can't do it, but because he's been hurt and he wants to stay fresh and continue his explosiveness throughout the year. And I mean, he saw it 18 touches, I believe it was, 14 carries, 4 targets, something like that. I mean, even on his limited role, that's an immense workload. And if it's even closer in this game, which it should be, Eckler's going to see his snap share rise, his carries and targets rise. He's a decent pivot off a guy that I think underwhelmed for a lot of people. I mean, he was a top 5 draft pick for a lot of people at the end of the fantasy football regular season. And he certainly didn't play like it in week 1. So there's a little bit of stink on his name. I'll go back to him right away in captain today. And that could be your guy in this tournament you're speaking of.
I think there's a lot of different paths you can take at captain for single entry, and still make a lineup that isn't egregious for a single entry contest either. What about Gerald Everett?
Gerald Everett, I mean, I think he benefits certainly from the Parham injury. You look at the players behind him. Trey McKitty is more of a blocker. They've kind of had to use him as more of a receiver. I mean, he's going to be a red zone threat because he's huge. But Gerald Everett is the guy that they're going to use on main red zone situations. He was out there for a majority of the routes, which if you're looking at tight end, that's what you should be focusing on rather than just raw snap share. Gerald Everett played on 44 snaps, 23 routes. McKitty, again, 40 snaps. So he was only 4 snaps behind Everett, but just 13 routes. Everett had a 10 route edge on McKitty. And I think he's going to be an excellent play for that reason. He was also involved in the red zone. He caught a touchdown. I believe he saw 2 red zone targets himself, if I'm not mistaken. That's really good involvement for a tight end who's at a very nice price point here. Could be some solid leverage off Palmer if that's the way you decide to go.
Yeah, McKitty, very much, I'd say limited involvement in terms of route participation, but he was also targeted 4 times. And I'm with you that Gerald Everett is just definitely the better play. But the reason I bring it up is because you've got somebody like Trey McKitty who is $400. Everett is $4,800. So massive discount there. And I'm not necessarily saying this happens again, but Herbert spread the ball around a lot in that game. Not one player had more than 4 targets. Williams had 4, Everett had 4, Carter had 4, McKitty had 4, Keenan Allen had 4. Now, granted, Keenan Allen had 4 a lot earlier than anyone else, so he certainly would have had more. But do we see a more spread around offense or without Keenan Allen? Because you had Eckler with 3, you had Palmer with 3, Kelly had 2, Horvath had 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 guys were targeted. It's like a fucking preseason game, Matt.
It was, and I don't expect it to continue just because it doesn't line up with the routes. It doesn't line up with the historical rates at which these players get targeted on the field. Like Trey McKitty to get targeted 4 times on 13 routes. What is the guy, Travis Kelce now? Personally, I don't think so. Anytime you see a player targeted at that high of a rate on this low of a route share, maybe they're playing on specific packages. McKitty's not. He's a blocker. He played on half the snaps. He just happened to leak out there for 13 routes and Herbert passed it to him. Same thing with Xander Horvath. I mean, the guy, one, he's a fullback. Two targets on 7 routes. That is an incredibly high target rate on these individual routes. There's just no way this persists. It doesn't happen. Just like mathematically, this doesn't happen in the NFL. So I would expect it to be a little more condensed. Again, Herbert's been a guy that's historically spread it out, not to the degree that he did in week 1, though. So expect more targets for Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, and Everett, the guys that were actually on the field participating in routes. They're just out there more. They should see more targets throughout the year.
Yeah, of course. There's no question about it. However, it makes it kind of interesting, at least, though, that there are a good handful of players on this team that could see 2-3 targets, and one of them goes for a touchdown. That's, I think, what makes it a really intriguing slate, because down there in this, super discount range, there are a lot of these guys where you go, all right, look, a good chance they don't do anything. This is why they're so cheap. But in that same breath, like, you wouldn't be shocked if they saw a couple or a few targets either, which is nice. And a lot of them are really cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about Noah Gray as part of your betting earlier in the show. I would watch our tools throughout the day, watch ownership. If you have the time, maybe listen to some shows around the industry, see who's getting steamed up. Right now, Trey McKitty's projecting for 13% ownership. I think that's largely because he essentially played 50% of this, more than 50% of the snaps. But again, the route rate was really low. Noah Gray, he's coming in at 3.4% ownership. Jalen Guyton, 4.4. Some of the running backs, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, like Sony Michel, he's coming in just sub 6% ownership. I think there's a lot of players in this range that are going to see the field tonight, and you could make some pretty intelligent pivots depending on where the ownership condenses. I like McKitty as a player, but again, 13 routes on 40 snaps is pretty bad. He was targeted, but that's not likely to continue. It's not like McKitty's a rookie bursting on the scene either. This guy's been with the team and he's never been targeted at that high of a rate. So yeah, I'm skeptical.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll make pivots in this range in tournaments. And I like your Noah Gray call. I think that's a good one.
Nice. Yeah, and we'll talk about that for sure. Any other pass? Let me just do this because we're not helping you guys out if we don't, actually talk through the strategy and through lineup construction. We will build a lineup at the end of this show too, before MLB strategy show takes over. Then I'll be back with Matt Savoca at 11 for the marathon matchup show. Get you ready for Sunday. But as far as Herbert goes, we usually don't spend a ton of time on quarterbacks like this because they're just really good and they're going to warrant attention and ownership no matter what. But do you envision yourself playing Herbert a lot more in the flex, even in bigger contests? Or do you think you're going to try and work those lineups in with Herbert at captain? And how often do you find yourself pairing him with Patrick Mahomes?
In cash game builds, low risk contests, I think you have to. Between the two, I think you're still probably giving the edge to Mahomes and captain. So naturally, I think you'll just end up with a little more Herbert flex because people are going to prioritize Mahomes. That makes sense. For tournaments of like the mid-size, I am fine captaining Herbert. You're also going to hear this notion throughout the day, which we just spent a lot of time on. Herbert likes to spread it around to his pass catchers. He's going to use a lot of guys. No one had more than 4 targets. That's all true. And I think that's going to lend, or at least push people towards captaining Herbert when they're trying to be contrarian. Again, I don't think that's going to continue. So if I'm going to get even more leverage on a Mike Williams captain lineup, I'm going to try to do a lot of that in tournaments tonight, using Herbert in the flex, but then trying to get some leverage with like Mike Williams and Palmer captains. That's for larger field though, like the bigger tournaments tonight. Small field, I think you're probably looking at Mahomes captain, but if it's a very small tournament, Herbert should be fine in that regard too. Mahomes is just going to be more owned than him.
We got 450 people watching, Matt, at 9:30 in the AM.
That's amazing. Thank you guys for being here. And it's really early for some of you West Coasters, if you're up even earlier. Props to you.
Yeah. And props to all of you 95 people who have hit that thumbs up already. Almost at 100 midway through the show. Hey, we're putting in work this morning. 108. Boom. Look at, we're cruising, man. All right. I love it. And subscribe if you haven't done so yet. But, atone for those sins, hit the thumbs up, appease the YouTube overlords. And let's take a look quickly at all of the winners. I forgot to do it the other day. I didn't do it till the end. I got to do it. People have been asking me. I get DMs like, dude, can you do the Hall of Fame? I got up there for the first time, and I've been trying to get up there. Yes, 100%. Stokastic Hall of Fame. Stokastic.com/avatar. What does that do? Well, it helps you. You can download the avatar there, use it. DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, wherever it is that you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And not only do you win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, not just NFL, literally everything on the site, well over $100 value. You'll also get up here and we'll brag for you. We'll shout you out, and all of your wildest dreams will come true. Just tweet those wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter once you have that avatar and you come home with a win. All right. So I told you we had some monsters, right? First up, Chillman 9. This was awesome because he waited 3 weeks. Samuel says, about 3 weeks dated and not a field of 5,000 plus. We're putting this up there anyway. But I wanted to say thanks for everything from you guys. Want a qualifier to get in to set my bankroll, then set my bankroll for life. Can't wait to get back to watching NBA every day with Laffy and Josh. I appreciate you, man. $1 million, Matt, in a PGA contest.
That's incredible. And PGA too, a sport I've had no success in. So congrats to that person. That's awesome.
It's amazing. And then that's Stunner. Ben and I talked about him. So did Neil and I yesterday. I don't know him personally. I know he's friends with Alex, this guy just crushes, consistently crushes. $1 million in the Sunday NFL juggernaut. $2 million screenshots for the Stokastic Hall of Fame. That has to be a first time. Then you've got Steve Buzzard, the Colts, who does a ton of work on our projections, our tools behind the scenes. One of the smartest guys out there. You've seen him on plenty of shows as well. $100,000 in the 500K bootleg. Then you've got, it doesn't end. NFL Showdown, Monday Night Millionaire. Deathflower, who was in chat with us yesterday, said he's going to change that avatar. And Falstaff, both chop first place, Matt, for $300,000 each. I mean, what's going on?
A lot of success. Congrats to all you guys out there. That's incredible to hear. Glad to hear it across sports as well. Again, PGA is even more impressive to me, but awesome job, everyone. Love to see all those screenshots and all these names at the top of contests.
No doubt. And if you enter the nickel or the quarter, usually those are insanely hard to win. You take home a couple $100. That's a big win to a lot of people. It doesn't need to be $1 million or 100,000 coming up here. As long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, we got you. So, don't look at this and be like, I'll never, not. It's not like that. Top 3 field of 5,000 or more. Like Average Maher, chop the main on Thursday and solo. There you go. $1 single entry. Average Mah's my name on Stokastic. Time to change my avatar. $9,000. So $10,000 here. That's amazing, man. And to close it out, our boy EMAC, just making sure there were no stat corrections. Shout out to Stokastic Hall of Fame with the great tools. EMAC is a part of the team, by the way. Not too shabby for 20 cheap tickets. There you go. 40th out of 1.2 million. Thanks to Digital B, Eric Lindquist, Greg Ehrenberg for always answering my questions. Hashtag last of the big spender 1600. Congrats to all of you guys. You've now been inducted into the Hall of Fame, or welcome back. Just a monster wall of huge wins. So wanted to get that up there. Shout out to you guys. We'll do this. We'll keep running this back throughout the season as the wins come in, as they pour in. All right, you ready to talk about the Chiefs here?
Yeah, let's do it.
I kind of love this slate because the Chiefs are no longer, I can't play Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes in the same lineup. And if I do, I'll have nothing left over. Now you've got Mecole Hardman, who was only had 2 receptions on 6 targets last game, Matt. But if you actually dig into 3 receptions on 6 targets, only 25 yards per route run was dismal. But if you dig into the numbers, he had 2 very deep targets as well. So 2 targets were 20 plus yards downfield. That's always appealing to me when you have when you have a sharp shooter like Patrick Mahomes. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling they brought onto a big contract. You have Juju, who's brand new. We talked about Noah Gray. You had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was involved in the passing game. Jerick McKinnon, who was involved in the passing game, ran more routes than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. My point being is, outside of Kelsey, there's still a lot of players that could have a very big game, especially if Mahomes goes off.
For sure. And we don't really need to discuss Kelsey. He's kind of a no-brainer at this point. Play Kelsey if you can. Breaking down the receivers is where this gets interesting. I think Juju tentatively looks like the wide receiver one. That's kind of what we expected for him. He was tied with MVS for most routes on the team. He's not going to be like your situational deep threat or anything like that. We kind of know what Juju is, but if he's going to be the number one, we'll call him number two because Kelsey's technically the one. Number two for Patrick Mahomes, it's going to have a ton of value. So you got to like Juju. The interesting breakdown comes between Hardman and MVS, and we're talking about a 1-game sample here, but they use MVS underneath. Going into the year, I thought he was going to retain that situational deep threat field stretcher role that he occupied under Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, but his ADOT, if I'm not mistaken, was 5.5, targeted a lot around the line of scrimmage. And then to your point, they were using Mecole Hardman as that situational deep threat. Now, both these guys have elite speed. We've heard the comp. Mecole Hardman's going to be the new Tyreek Hill. He's going to play that Tyreek Hill role. Well, Tyreek Hill was targeted a lot downfield. It wasn't just the manufactured plays underneath. So to your point, I'm interested in Mecole Hardman tonight. There's a lot of big play upside. He had an enormous ADOT, especially down the field. Those targets you mentioned beyond 20 yards. He's an interesting play, and I think a lot of people are just naturally going to gravitate to MVS.
I feel the same way. And that's why to me, the one thing I was really looking at for week one was where do the deep balls go to, right? Like who's getting these deep targets for Kansas City? So Mahomes attempted 3 of them. By the way, he dropped back on 63% of snaps, which normally you'd go, oh, well, that's okay. What are you trying to say? That's not crazy at all. But when you consider the fact that they were just shitting on Arizona all game, it's pretty significant. I mean, go look back at his final drive, his final 2 drives in the third quarter before Chad Henne came in for cleanup duty. He was still throwing on almost every single play. So I don't know how much game script even matters in a scenario like this. Patrick Mahomes, like Andy Reid knows that he has Patrick Mahomes and knows that he doesn't have to run it 25 times a game if he doesn't want to. And that's what they did against Arizona, even though they were up. I mean, that game at no point was in doubt.
Yeah, there's a fun stat. You know this, but pass rate over expectation. So in that game the Chiefs just played, their expectation's not going to be passing the ball 70% of the time, whatever it ended up being. It was way above expectation. The Chiefs finished number 1 in pass rate over expectation in week 1. I don't think that's a huge surprise, but to the degree at which they finished number 1, this team, to your point, was passing the ball all over the yard. And looking at these contrarian captains, these contrarian pass catchers, like beyond Kelsey, I think you want to be playing these guys. So I have a lot of interest in MVS. I have a lot of interest in Mecole. And I think you can even get a little more contrarian than that. You talked about Noah Gray. I think he's excellent. But one thing that might fly under the radar today is Justin Watson returning to full practice. This guy was playing ahead of Sky Moore in week 1. And even Justin Watson got hurt mid-game, but he still finished with more routes than Sky Moore. He still finished with more snaps than Sky Moore. So if you're punting a player in this lineup, Justin Watson returning to full practice, I think is very big for those of you that are playing large field tournaments. He was mixing in there with Mecole Hardman a little bit. This guy had 9 routes before he got hurt, and he's playing in the slot, essentially the same place that Mecole Hardman was occupying. There's a chance that Mecole played elevated snaps due to that injury. Again, I don't think it's the most likely situation, but for those of you in the Millie Maker tonight, that's an angle you could potentially approach.
I like that. Yeah. You have to try and find all of those angles. Like if we're not digging through every skill player on this roster, and not trying to find that player that nobody's talking about. And I think too, to your point, if we're looking just what's the ownership on Watson right now? Do we have, 2.5? Okay. So I actually thought Sky Moore would be getting more ownership than Watson just on name recognition alone, right? Like he was hyped up all throughout camp and second round rookie. To me, Sky Moore is the Jalen Guyton tonight of the Kansas City Chiefs. Might get 1 deep attempt, right? And if he scores on it, he scores on it, and that's probably it. And he's going to run very, very few routes.
I agree with that. One potential positive for Sky Moore, he is a second-round rookie. I mean, when Justin Jefferson was a first round rookie, he essentially didn't play his first 2 games, and then he slowly ascended into a role. And now he is what he is today. I don't think Sky Moore is Justin Jefferson, but a lot of times we see these rookies eased into action and they can have an increasing role throughout the year. We know what Justin Watson is. He's a situational player if he's going to receive snaps, but he doesn't have any real upside to finish as, a wide receiver contributor throughout the year. He is what he is. It's going to take injury for him to get there. Sky Moore might actually be something, and he could ascend into a role. So he is, I think, at least in the beginning of the season, going to have a fragile projection until we get more information on him. But early returns in week 1 weren't great for Sky Moore. I'll still take some shots because of his youth. But for that same reason, I think Watson's also worth taking some shots just because he played ahead of Sky Moore.
No question. And I don't want to overreact to one game, but I think you would agree that just from a pricing standpoint, if you're looking at all of the guys that are actually, where the route participation is actually, respectable and not just straight dart throws, like a lot of the ones we talked about, Mecole Hardman at his price, I think is the most interesting to me. And another thing, so of the 6 targets, 2 of them were deep balls, 3 of them were in the red zone, and 2 of them were inside the 10. Can you ask for better quality targets in game 1 than that?
I don't think so. And you're honestly getting a chance to get some leverage with Mecole Hardman. Palmer's going to be more owned because Palmer's going to play more. He's playing with Herbert. He's the number 2. Mecole's the number 3, I think you would say, based just on maybe even 4 if you include Kelsey. So the path isn't quite as clear. But, Mahomes spread it around a little bit too. We know Kelsey was kind of dominant, but 6 targets is a lot for your on paper wide receiver 4, especially they're coming in the fashion that Mecole got them. So I like him as a pivot to Josh Palmer. He's only 600 more. Again, if you're playing cash or low risk, Palmer should be the guy you choose. But in tournaments, this is awesome leverage you can gain as long as you have that $600.
Yeah, man. Jason said, I always hit did I pronounce, is that how you spell Jason? That is interesting. It must be Jason, right? Jaycen.
I think so.
Right? All right.
I think so.
Unique. I like it. He said, I always hit the like button. Great content. Thanks. Yeah, we got 181 likes. I'm telling you, we're crushing this one today. 550 people watching. We still got some time to go. And huge shout out to who just gifted 50 memberships. Jorge. That's Jorge, right? I don't think that's George.
I think it's Jorge.
Okay. Yeah. Mike, your mic better have been hot, so it didn't sound like I was wrong about that. Yeah, Jorge, Jacome. 50, you just gifted 50 of them, Matt. I mean, we're in business.
Incredibly generous. Jorge is a beast. Seeing that in chat. Jorge's a legend. Thank you, Jorge. Appreciate you very much.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Thanks. He's always hanging out with us. So that's great. We're going to hit 200 likes. We might even hit 600 live. So big morning for us here. Big morning for all of us. Much love. All right. Anybody else? No. Oh, Backfield for. Let me back up for a second, Matt. I never want to miss stuff. If I do, gracefully admit it. Were there any running backs behind Austin Eckler that you think warrant our conversation? If not, we can move on.
Oh, yeah. Really good point here. Again, Eckler in the offseason speaking to not desiring a full workload. He wants to remain explosive, fresh, and non-injured. Makes sense. He's not the biggest back. They used Joshua Kelly and Sony Michel behind him. They were both involved. Sony Michel was a little more active on the ground. I think if you were to see a guy score a touchdown, Michel would be a little more likely than Kelly, but both these guys were on the field. Kelly got 18 snaps. Michel got 16. If you look at carries, they're slightly balanced towards Michel, but both these guys are cheap. We know historically the Chargers are going to use some form of committee. Again, my personal belief is in a closer game today, at least a projected closer game, Eckler will see a little more work. But with that said, it's going to be rotation nonetheless. I have interest in both of these guys in very large tournaments. They're going to be pivots off your really cheap pass catchers.
Would you consider, kind of no stone unturned question here. Would you consider pairing Eckler with any of them in large field tournaments?
I think you absolutely can. In that instance, you're probably looking at some sort of 4-2, 5-1 build in favor of the Chargers, which I think is live. They have a great defense. They could put some pressure on Mahomes, cause some issues. We've seen Mahomes struggle at times, very rare times, but when he's pressured, they have the edge rushers in the defensive line to potentially do that. I think you're just at that point betting on the touchdown luck falling your way, most of them coming via the ground. Maybe Eckler could get a receiving touchdown if you were including Herbert in the lineup, but the path is there. It's going to be a high scoring game. They use multiple backs. They use multiple backs in the red zone. I don't think it's the craziest thing. No one's going to play that construction.
Is it my internet or is the stream lagging?
I don't know. It might be mine.
Is the audio okay? Okay. All right. Just want to make okay. So back to Kansas City, Matt, and then we'll build a lineup here. Always our favorite part. What do you want to do? You want to build like a single, because some of these single entry contests are not large field, but they get pretty big. And we had that question earlier. Maybe we could do that. Yeah.
Jillian had I think a really interesting single entry. It was 35K entries with, the single entry vibe. So maybe we should build for something like that because it's very unique. But for Kansas City, just to break down this backfield a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't going there yet. Don't worry.
We're not going there.
Running backs here.
Go ahead. KC's please. Backfield.
No, I'm saying I wasn't going to the lineup build yet. I was just teasing it out for a second.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I missed.
No, you're good. You're good. Let's talk about the Chiefs backfield.
The first thing I want to highlight here is it's going to be a committee. No back, some more than 40% of the snaps, which is egregious. I believe KC and New England were the only two backs that actually hit that threshold. That's never good. But there is a little bit of upside here. You mentioned KC rolling in week 1. They certainly did. Isaiah Pacheco only saw one of his touches before the fourth quarter. How involved is he actually going to be in these games? That's a question I have. He's not a player I particularly like at his price tag. I would honestly rather play Jerick McKinnon, who has a very real role on pass downs. He's going to be their third down back this year. And you might have saw, what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did in the first half. If that game was a little bit closer, maybe he could have added some extra production. I mean, it was a timeshare, but he was certainly playing ahead of Pacheco in the first half. So to me, I think maybe you're getting CEH a little undervalued, little overvalued Pacheco based on all that work he was able to get in a blowout in the fourth quarter.
That was mostly blowout run. Yeah, I agree. But okay, let me ask you this. Where would you prioritize at his price Clyde Edwards-Helaire today?
Oh, he's not a priority.
Okay.
I think a GPP play. He's more expensive than Juju, MVS, essentially every main skill position player, non-Kelsey and Mahomes on this team. And we just spoke to them being the pass heaviest team really in the NFL at this point. I don't expect that to change. They're right up there year over year. So to me, he's just pure leverage. I think if you're playing him, it's just, I'm getting a low owned player on the Chiefs offense that could score a lot of touchdowns. How did you view him?
This could come back to bite me, but I am wildly unenthusiastic about Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this price point. A couple of things. One, I still think Jerick McKinnon is going to be the primary pass catching back ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, I think they both get work in the passing game, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, do we not think that he kind of had a bit of an outlier game in week 1 as far as, 2 receiving touchdowns go? Oh yeah, for sure. Right? Like, definitely. Especially when you have Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, MVS. Like, there's so many other pass catching options. And yeah, I know Mahomes threw for 5, but I mean, I did the betting video on the Odd Shopper channel. Again, if you're just tuning in, check those out. I actually have under 69.5 rushing and receiving yards for Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I think in the receiving game, I anticipate him taking a bit of a hit here, and there's just so many mouths to feed. So from a price point perspective, I don't see how he is. And like you said, great leverage play. And maybe he does something like he did last week and we eat our words, but I don't think there's any reason that he should be $1,600 separated from Austin Eckler.
We are in complete agreement there. I do not agree with that pricing whatsoever. I think Eckler easily has more upside than CEH. They're both in committees. I think Eckler's is going to be a little more balanced in his favor. And to your point, the scoring that Clyde Edwards-Helaire showed in week 1, we have a large sample of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this point. He does not score touchdowns at that rate. I believe one of them came on that typical Andy Reid like shuffle screenplay that he likes to run.
Yes.
They do that a lot to fullbacks, tight ends, everybody else in the roster too. It's not a role he plays. It's mixed.
Time to build a lineup. First, though, shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. People are crushing it over there. I told you, I had people in the comments the other day. They're like, I'm not good at DFS, but I keep raking on Prize Picks. So, hey, find what works for you, man. And for a lot of people, it's Prize Picks. You're just taking props, right? No juice on either side, right? So there's no odds on these props. It's just the over or the under. And we've been hitting those touchdown props for a long time now. Those rushing touchdown props over a half for like Jonathan Taylor with no juice. Crazy. You could do 2, 3, 4, 5 player lineups or cards, whatever you want to call them. And if you hit all 5, you're 10xing your entry fee. The good thing, though, the very cool part about this, which is, an untraditional aspect and different than all of your other books, like sports books, is if you hit 4 on a parlay at another book, you're done. Your parlay, you're not getting shit. You hit 4 here, you're 2xing. You still get 2x back. You still make money back if you hit 3 of 5 as well. That's a huge way to sustain your bankroll. Keep putting yourself in a position to make money. And if you want to make money out of the gate, use the link in chat. Mike's going to throw it in there now in the description. $100 first match deposit bonus. You put $100 in, they give you $100. You put 50 in, you get 50. Starts you off in a huge way. You can do cross sports as well. I say you're like Matt, right? And UFC well, but football and college football well. You can make a 5 prop lineup with 2 NFL, 2 college football, and a UFC prop. They don't all have to be football. They can be baseball, whatever. You can mix them in cross sport lineups and win some money in the process. Use the link that we threw in their description. Get the $100 first match deposit bonus, prizepicks.com or the App Store, Google Play Store, wherever it is you feel inclined to play. Prizepicks.com. Sponsor of the strategy show, baby. All right. Lineup time?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're saying single entry, not small field, not massive Thursday night millionaire maker field, but medium field, I'd say.
All right. I love the one Jillian proposed, the 35K,
Let's
which
do it.
Your milli maker is going to be well over 100,000. So I think this is a nice blend.
200,000.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Good luck to you guys playing. I hope one of you takes it down. We get a screenshot button. That is
2 of them did on Monday. So
I know
let's keep it going.
Winning out of a 200K field is incredible. But I think for this size of a single entry, you do see the best plays at captain. That's what they are. The best plays. Mahomes and Herbert come in over owned. People have this notion, okay, I'm not playing in a 150 tournament. I'm not even playing in a 20 max. I only get one shot at this. I want it to be my best lineup. And these players are a little more owned than they should be. So I think we should play the leverage game. It doesn't necessarily matter who. I think you're getting pretty good leverage on like Mike Williams, Juju, MVS, whatever the pass catcher of your choosing may be in captain. But I think we should try playing one of them. What do you think?
I'm 100% with you on that. We're locked in on that concept. I will say I made a couple lineups just while we were talking here with, Herbert or Mahomes at captain, and then the other one at utility. If you play a Noah Gray type and you have to forego basically guys like Eckler and Kelsey, and I'm not saying we do that with this lineup, but I had asked you earlier, you can go with like a Mike Williams and a Hardman and an MVS with Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I think that'll probably be pretty popular. It is doable, but I'm with you. I want to try. I think we're in lockstep there. I want to try one of those guys at captain and see what we can build. So let's do it.
All right. What do you say we do a cheaper Chiefs captain? Because Mahomes is probably going to be the most expensive and high. Well, he is the most expensive, but most highly owned captain. I honestly don't even hate a Mecole, but I think MVS is interesting as well. Mecole's at a different price point, so he's going to give you a ton of salary relief.
Let's try Hardman and see what we can get away with here.
All right, let's do it.
What's his captain ownership? All right, so about 4.5%. I think that makes sense.
For a near every down player attached to Patrick Mahomes with the potential deep threat role, which he occupied in week 1.
Yeah. And the 3 red zone targets. I mean, 2 inside the 10 is huge for me. All right. So Hardman opens it up. Let me just take the traditional route here. I'll go Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
Let's do Herbert. We already have a lot of leverage by not playing them in the captain.
Love it. Okay, so we have Hardman, we have Mahomes, we have Herbert. We have 6,200 per player remaining. Here's the question, right? And we'll be out of here soon. MLB strategy show coming up next. Here's the question. Do we want to go just heavily populate the remainder of this lineup with mid-range guys? Or do we want to go with a Noah Gray type and then go Mike Williams and Austin Eckler?
If we do that, we do.
Or Travis Kelce.
We can't get both Eckler and Williams, but we can get two really good plays. I think you can play one of them at least, and then have you might not even have to play Noah Gray down at the end.
Right.
I think the question is, do you want to eat Kelce's going to be chalky and we're already pretty leveraged? Do we just want to eat the Kelce chalk?
Yeah, we probably should. I don't know. And you're right, by the way, we're 200 short of being able to go Gray, Williams, and Eckler.
That's crazy.
200 short. Yeah. All right. So we have Hardman, Mahomes, and Herbert. You make the call. We got 3 remaining spots, 6,200 per player.
Let's do Kelce because we're going to have a lot easier of a time stacking Herbert cheap with the Palmers and those guys down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we have 3,800 remaining. I'm really not. And I saw a question about this in chat. It's not to say you can never play defenses in what's projected to be a high scoring game or kickers like this, but I'm not enthusiastic about it. And you can't play the kicker for the Chiefs. Right. He's not in the player pool. There's no way.
Matt Amendola is in the player pool. Yeah. They added him, thankfully.
Oh, they did. You know why? I spelled it like Danny Amendola and it didn't show up because Danny Amendola has 1 M.
Yeah.
All right. So they got him in there. So do as you please.
Who did you add?
I don't know yet. Let's go.
Was it my pick or yours? I think it's yours.
It's mine. You went Kelce, right?
Yeah.
I'll go. The problem with Noah Gray is if you go Noah Gray, does it really help you that much? You could get MVS, but then you've got 5 Chiefs with Mahomes not at captain, which worries me a little bit.
I found an excellent last 2, I think.
Let's hear it.
You can fit Palmer and McKinnon, max out your salary, or you can go down from Palmer, play any sort of Gerald Everett. You could play Carter. You could go way down if you want to get some real leverage here. But I think we're already pretty leveraged just by not playing Mahomes and Herbert. So you can use a little more salary. If you finish out with McKinnon, Palmer, this lineup looks pretty good.
I like that a lot, actually. What if, I know we got to go, Mike, but what if, and I just want to see an alternative here because I like that first one. What if we went Mike Williams over Kelce? Does that afford us any opportunity either to upgrade anywhere else? Gives us 4,800 remaining per player.
Yeah, that's a lot. You could definitely go up from, McKinnon and play DeAndre Carter. So now you're you have Mahomes, Hardman. Those are your top 2. Then you have Herbert stacked with all of his top 3 receivers.
Damn. Okay. There's a lot we can do with this slate.
A lot. As long as you're not captaining Mahomes and Herbert.
We have 620 watching. We're almost at 250 likes. Maybe our finest, maybe your guys' finest performance yet. Greatly appreciated. Thanks for the super chats, guys. Jorge, gifting 50 of those memberships was killer, dude. Appreciate you as well. And hey, if you're betting this game right now, bet MGM, $10 into 200. Just use the link. We got the link right there. I know you're all over at DraftKings and FanDuel already. They're not giving you shit anymore. They've got you locked in. You're not getting all those good bonuses. Bet MGM right now. You bet $10 on either team to win. And if a touchdown is scored tonight, you're in $200 like that. And you get your winnings if you're on the right side. If you're not, you still get $200. The way I see it is if you lose all of that 200 after you take advantage of this promo, you lost $10. You'll sleep fine. If you go on a killer winning streak and just catch a heater, you're up, a couple $1,000 heading into week 2 of the NFL or week 3 of the NFL season. You can't beat it, man. Take advantage of every promo they throw at you. We got the links right there. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski, me at Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.